Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the BNLF Junior Lawyers Division webinar. Today, we'll be looking at digital skills for lawyers, and we hope to give you an insight into the need for and the skills required to be a modern technologically savvy lawyer during and after a COVID-19 world. I'm your host this evening, and my name is Mojisola Olabinjo. I am currently doing the legal practice course with a master's in law. I'm also the University Liaison personnel for BNLF Junior Lawyers Division. For those of you that do not know much about BNLF, it is a bilateral organization that serves as a vehicle where lawyers and other interested parties from both jurisdictions can communicate with each other to promote legal ideas as well as foster mutually beneficial relationships. The British Nigerian Law Forum is a vibrant professional organization recognized by leading legal and professional bodies in the UK and Nigeria. It is made up of practicing lawyers and students in the UK and in Nigeria. It also provides business, networking, and educational opportunities for its members in both jurisdictions. In addition, it has a number of divisions, including the Junior Lawyers Division, Business Division, Family Law Division, and Immigration Division. Okay, so a bit of housekeeping. Please take note that today's session is being recorded and we will make it available on the BNLF's website should you wish to watch it again. Please also feel free to ask questions anytime during the webinar using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and I'll raise your questions with the speakers during the Q&A session. Now, we have an accomplished panel of 3 speakers with us today. Thomas Pearson, the Chief Commercial Officer at Africa Legal, Sam Onigbanjo, the CEO of the Great Business Platforms, and Ololade Saromi, co-head of the BNLF Junior Lawyers Division and a barrister at 5 Paper. They will each speak for 15 minutes, after which I will raise your questions from the Q&A with them. So our first speaker today is Thomas Pearson. Tom is the Chief Commercial Officer at Africa Legal, part of the Africa Professional Services Group. He is an established publishing and media expert with an academic background in law. He has over 10 years of experience working with the world's largest law firms and technology vendors across digital marketing, events, recruitment, and research. Tom will speak to us this evening on people, profile, and technology. He'll emphasize the digital skills lawyers should be developing during the pandemic and how they can go about it. So let's welcome Tom.
Hi everyone, thanks Moji, and thanks to the BNLF for having me today. It's a great pleasure. So, I always like that intro when it says my academic background in law. What that really means is I realised quite quickly I wasn't as smart as you all to actually pursue a career in law, and I just thought that legal media would be a little bit easier, but I can still, you know, keep in touch. So well done to you all for sticking at it. I've got some slides that I'm going to go ahead and work on sharing here, just to check that can be seen, or if someone needs to authorize that to be seen. Moji,
yes,
I can see it. Yes.
Is that up? And is it a nice and clean first slide with the title of this session?
Yes, it is.
Let me see. We're talking about digital skills, and I've got myself checking whether I can get this working. Great. Let me just check that we're there. Good. Okay, everyone. So I'm going to talk more about the mindset and the preparation that can go into starting on your deployment of digital skills for your benefit as a lawyer, rather than really going into detail on the specifics of digital skills. I think Sam is going to be talking slightly more technically, but I want to set the context of what I feel it is to be a digitally enabled modern lawyer. Now, a lot of this has to do with how we're approaching things in principle rather than practice. But I'm here for any questions that go a little bit further and people want to know about how you'd actually put some of these ideas into practice during the Q&A. So Africa Legal, very quickly, we are the one-stop shop for news and content, jobs and digital learning for the legal professions across Africa. Nigeria is obviously one of our largest audiences, given its status and its size. And we've been servicing this for coming up to 2 years now. And we are now north of 126,000 individual users. So very happy with how we're going. And if you're already a visitor to us, thank you very much. And if you've yet to come and see us, come to the site. It's entirely free to access news, jobs, and courses. So have a look. That's already been gone through, so we're not going to dwell on that. Now, let's talk about what I want to today. I'm dividing it into 3 main sections that I feel are the most relevant for us to focus on. The way that you can develop and deploy digital skills is innumerable. So I'm just going to focus on 3 key areas. That's people, profile, and technology. So when we think about people, I want us to start thinking about how do we stay connected and relevant to mentors, clients, and colleagues during the current COVID pandemic, and what skills should we be choosing to develop now to operate best in the new working world as we come out the other side of lockdowns and all that goes with that. On the profile side of things, we should be thinking about what we can do to ensure our profile is maintained and even raised during times when traditional networking and profile raising is inaccessible. And on the technology side of things, I'd like everyone to think about what technologies we should be adopting, utilizing, and developing to maximize our ability to progress in our legal careers. And very importantly, what human skills do we need to match with this technology? You know, a robot is a robot. It does require a master and a commander. So what skills as humans do we need to bring to the table when we're leveraging the power of technology? So let's look at people to begin with. Now, I gave a speech at a BNLF, I think it was the launch event for the Junior Lawyers Division back in March 2019, which feels like a different lifetime ago now. And I did focus once again on people, profile, and technology. So a lot of the points that I made there have informed this discussion with some tweaks to make it more relevant during COVID. One of my main points I made during that speech was boldness, a willingness to put yourself out there when it comes to the people that you choose to engage with. And I cannot reiterate that enough, and how it is still incredibly relevant. Digital outreach can have the same impact as in-person outreach. Choosing to connect with someone, and not on LinkedIn, for example, never just connect and leave. Follow-up messages, an introduction, how are you? Reach for the highest levels of the profession, because you will often be surprised at the willingness for QCs, managing partners, senior partners alike to spend the time and the investment in helping junior lawyers and students in their careers with their questions. Now, you're not going to get everyone, and take that as a given. You know, don't be disheartened, but be bold. And technology actually gives you a greater ability to outreach now than potentially trying to work or even gain access to a room where you could physically introduce yourself to the kind of mentors and people that you want to. So really go for it and do embrace it. And the technology allows you to be more data-led. So keep a record of your outreaches, about who you're reaching out to, why you're reaching out to them, when you reached out to them, what medium you used to reach out to them, and have a look for trends. Are people better at responding on LinkedIn, Facebook, direct email, phone call if you're feeling brave, and use that to inform your decisions going forward? Okay. And reverse mentoring was something that I'm a big advocate of. And those that are lucky enough to already be in organizations or institutions that have some formalized mentoring system, there is no reason why that needed to be put on hold during all of this COVID pandemic and lockdown. In fact, the need for the higher ups to be listening to the juniors is even more important now, because you not only have the legal intellect, you have the technological and practical intellect that actually needs to be fed up more than ever. So have a think about that. If your firms or your organizations have slowed down on things like mentoring programs, reverse mentoring, there's no excuse, and call them out on it. So Tom Pearson, Africa Legal, says there's no reason you should have stopped this. The technology's there, the impetus is there. Get back in there and start doing it again. Now, let's think about the who, the how, and the why when it comes to our digital outreach to individuals. Who is an important question. We need to not just think about that, I'm going to try and connect with managing partners and senior partners. It's actually a whole plethora of different demographics in our working and personal lives that can help us and inform us and drive our careers forward. It's colleagues, it's mentors, it's those in your network, it's peer groups. Okay, so don't just isolate things down into groups. We need a really diverse range of individuals to help us in our own journeys. And you'll often be surprised at where those who are able to make that connection you needed or make that introduction that you were thinking of come from. Could be someone that you've just considered an acquaintance or a friend. So my main point here is don't go in with prejudice when it comes to what types of people or what pools of people may be the right to reach out to, especially digitally. You know, reach high, but also recognize that there's many people that can help us. Now how we reach out is very important here. With traditional networking on hold, you know, even more so. You've got email, you've got phone, you've got instant messaging, you've got LinkedIn, Facebook, video chat, regular meetings, web calls, you know, the list goes on and on. An exercise that I'd encourage everyone to do, and this feeds into the why, is a bit of a contact audit, if you will. Now, don't cry out, Tom, this is the most sado act I've ever heard, especially if we applied it to our own friendship groups. This is actually a very important and useful practice to do. Have a look at how much communication you're making. Not in your personal lives, but those tied to your professional lives. How many posts are you making on LinkedIn? What do you do on Facebook? How many messages do you send? Do you use text? Do you use email? Do you use LinkedIn? And record it. Now, you can do this in an Excel spreadsheet. If you're feeling tech savvy, you can do it in a CRM system, which is a customer relationship management system like HubSpot or Agile CRM or Salesforce. There are free versions as well. Just do a bit of digging. And record what mediums you're using, who you're reaching out to, and why. Because what this will allow you to do is actually get a very good understanding of exactly how you're spending your time on your digital outreach. You may well think that you're this prolific, business-focused, massively professional outreacher that does nothing but reach for the most important people that can progress your career. But if you actually look at the hard data, you could well be someone that is sending one LinkedIn message every week, and it's to the wrong person. We are terrible at kidding ourselves that we're doing the right thing as humans. Absolutely awful at it, because we never want to face up with the reality that no, we're not actually doing the right thing. We're not working smart. We're just working hard. And those two things are very different, working hard and working smart. But what an audit like this will allow you to do is make sure you're maximizing your outreach and your time. So something very important to consider. A bit of a filler slide. This is on profile, okay? And this guy obviously thinks he's got a fantastic profile. He's got the t-shirt to prove it. Not encouraging people to have this t-shirt made or your face on a t-shirt. I don't think it'll go down too well. But let's look at how we can raise our profiles, especially leveraging digital skills. Now more than ever, content is still king, okay? Giving someone a reason to respond, tying in your initial messaging with genuinely useful content or insight is still the #1 route to do so. I say to law firm clients of mine all the time, you know, Coca-Cola can get away with brand-based advertising. Law firms can't. And that means individual lawyers can't. Just having a fancy logo and slashing it out there all over may make us feel warm and fuzzy on the inside, but it's going to do absolutely zero for your business development and your marketing. Ensure that that brand is there, but ensure it's always tied with genuine, useful content and insight. Okay? And it's there, you have it. Each and every one of you will have a personal perspective that is interesting, an idea that's interesting, a take on a recent legislative change or case that's interesting. write it down and tie that with the brand you're trying to create, rather than shouting about your history, your academics. Really, when it comes to it, not many people care. They care about what that history and what those academics have led to, not what they are in and of themselves. And content is a fantastic way of demonstrating that, okay? A very important point now is no better time to start reaching out and actually being a content creator, curator, and promoter, okay? We are currently in an incredibly heightened state of emotion. You know, what this lockdown has led to lawyers and clients alike, we are all extremely susceptible to positive interactions, but on the flip side, also to negative interactions. So what we do now has the potential to ensure we are never forgotten in the minds of those that we would like to influence and connect with. Remember that. But also remember that connecting in the wrong way will likely never be forgotten as well. So when we're making our outreaches, when we're making our connections, empathy, usefulness, and relevance has never been more important. So remember that in both your human outreach to individuals, and also if you choose to embark on a content strategy and content creation of your own. Usefulness, relevance, and empathy, okay? And people are looking for genuine connections now. So the opportunity to be a source of guidance, of connection and community has never been greater. So bear that in mind. If you're a member of organizations that have kind of simmered down a bit, and the BNLF certainly isn't in that camp, take the opportunity to reinvigorate things. You know, don't let it wither on the vine. There's never a better time to leverage digital skills and digital channels to bring communities together and to invigorate existing communities, okay? Very important caveat to all of this, don't rush, okay? You may well have the channels, LinkedIn, Facebook, your website, a blog, to promote content and create content. That doesn't mean that you should go charging in all guns blazing, okay? Have a think about what value you can provide, analyze that, plan how you could add that value, act, always an important part, do act, do get it out there, but then review, okay? If you're using digital channels, every single one of them has access to analytics that will allow you to say, am I actually doing good? Am I making a difference? Am I being read? If I am being read, who is reading me? And it's a cyclical process. You analyze, plan, act, review, back into analyze, plan, act, review, okay? It's a constant process. Technology, here's a useful picture of the robot that's going to take all of you lawyers' jobs. I'm obviously joking. I'm a big believer in technology merely enhancing what a lawyer has to offer, not necessarily replacing it. So let's look at some examples here. Technology in the legal system is no better place than Africa to actually look at how it's transforming the practice of law. And Africa is bypassing very successfully traditional thinking on not just technology, legal technology, but technology as a whole. We've got examples like Law Basket, which is a Zimbabwean organization who are creating a group, a very large collection of independent lawyers, and then connecting them directly with clients through the medium of a website, through technology. You've got places like Legal Interact, which is a South African, homegrown African provider and creator of legal technology, who's just rolled out a fee, a time recording, a billing, an invoicing, and a document management system called Fee Track that is a mobile app in your pocket, and instantly you've got access to the basics of what it is to utilize technology as a lawyer. That's actually free for the first 60 days as well. So there's a real commitment to making this African homegrown technology as useful, but also as accessible as possible. So something to definitely look into. It's a continent which is rife with opportunity when it comes to legal tech. There's an anecdote I hear all the time about the lawyer who learned to code, and he was sitting in I don't know, in a meeting with Zuckerberg or whatever, you know, flavor of the month entrepreneur was, and he turned his laptop around, and Zuckerberg's sure there was code on it, and he high fives the lawyers. I'm going to spend $1 billion. It's rubbish. Not all lawyers need to code. Okay, it's not about the act itself. It's about the peripheral knowledge. You need to learn about why people code, the efficiencies that coding can bring, and the legal implications that, I don't know, improper IP protection of underlying source code can bring. Clients aren't often looking for you to replicate the skill set that they have. They need you to supplement, and they need you to fill the gaps. These tech clients know coding. They know how to code with their eyes shut. What they don't know are the IP implications for coding. What they don't know about whether that code can be protected in Nigeria as easily as it can in Ghana. Okay, so don't feel like you need to go on all these courses and learn to be coding. Great, if you want to, that'll be a great little feather in your cap, but don't think that's going to be the golden piece. Okay, the golden piece is filling the gap, bridging the gap between client technical knowledge and the law and the business world, and that's where you can absolutely shine. Okay, that's where you get the billion-dollar retainers, not simply through learning to code. Okay, now matching human skill with technology is something which is often overlooked. Technology is not there as a plug and play solution. Okay, we need to think about what human skills we need to develop first to get the most out of the technology. You know, are you starting to explore video? Look at your empathy, because video is a great enabler of true human interaction and emotion. So do you come across as a listener? I'm doing a bad example of that right now, but this is a panel, so I don't feel too bad. So are you a listener? Are you a talker? Do you articulate like me with your hands? In that case, video would be a good thing to pursue. Are you more of a technically brilliant but creative person? Well, why don't we look at the infographic medium, which is a fantastic visual medium through which we can crystallize and distill a lot of information into something that is actually quite aesthetically pleasing and informative and engaging. Are you a great communicator? Start writing, start writing that content. Are you an organizer? Let's look at those customer relationship management systems. Are you incredibly data driven? Let's look at deploying surveys and analyzing data. So what I'm saying here is, again, it's about planning. You don't need to rush off and access every little bit of legal tech and technology you find. Match it to your existing skills. Focus on enhancing those existing personal skills at the same time as you sharpen your digital pencil, okay? You can evolve as your utilization of technology evolves, and that's where we get the best results, okay? So I think I was probably to time, but I can be told whether I wasn't. This is my big question mark for question time. So I hope everyone found that useful. If I do have any time left, and Moji can tell me, I'm here for my Q&A section.
Thank you, Tom. That was very interesting and very relatable, because me, myself, I'm a junior lawyer. And I actually there was this one time I used my LinkedIn to contact the president of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. And I was so scared, because I was like, oh, she's not going to reply me, because I've messaged a lot of people and they just ignore my message. And she actually responded, and she said to me she was shocked that I was brave enough to compose such detailed message.
A great anecdote to match. It's there. People are willing to listen.
Yeah, and it was so interesting, because I told her about how I'd been struggling with getting a training contract, and she asked me, okay, what's the problem? And I said, I just don't feel confident. And she introduced me to a lot of people, and I'm receiving free confidence coaching, so everything you said is very correct. So yeah, thank you.
Fantastic.
Okay, so the first question I'm going to ask you, Tom, is what can we do to get started on integrating legal tech into our professional lives?
That's a good question. What I say on the legal tech side of things is drop the legal to begin with. It's tech, okay? And there is so much tech that we utilize in our everyday lives that has the potential to improve our professional lives. So what I recommend people do is actually have a look at what tech you use and enjoy using most in your day-to-day life. Are you obsessed with your mobile phone like most of us? Do you use social media? Do you like to record what you're doing? Do you write a diary? Do you listen to podcasts? What technology are you naturally drawn to in your day-to-day life, and what adds most value? And then take that one step further and think, okay, how could this benefit me in my professional life, in my academic life? If you love a podcast, think about recording one. If you're always on LinkedIn reading content, think about creating some of that content. If you're always taking surveys, not many, that's a really niche area, then why not think about starting to create them yourselves? So leveraging technology you already feel a propensity to is a great first step in actually realizing how technology could improve your professional life. And before you know it, you're in the legal tech sphere, and but you've approached it in a much more considered way, and you'll get a lot more out of it. So that's my recommendation. Drop the legal, just think about tech. Start with your personal life and then map that out into your professional.
Okay, sounds great. The second question is, some of the communities I'm hearing are lackluster in engagement. What can I do to reinvigorate and change them?
So again, we are all members of many, many different communities and peer groups and networks. What I'm seeing as a great opportunity at the moment is to reinvigorate these. So if you've seen a drop in messages, instant messages or content on any of the groups you're part of, now is a great time to be the change you want to see in the world. You know, so be the person that starts saying, guys, I know it used to be a physical meetup every month. Let's move it to Zoom. I'll tell you what, I'll set up the first one. X can set up the second one. Let's start thinking about topics. So it's a really simple answer there, in that there's a potential for our communities, our networks to wither slightly during this time. But be bold, be brave, and be the person that says, we can use technology here, guys. You know, if you, in your law firm, for example, if you used to have, I don't know, coffee with a managing partner once every month, there is no reason why that can instantly have been moved on Zoom. A lot of firms are doing that proactively. If they're not, be the change, be the voice, and be the person that ensures that those connections are still being made.
Yeah, that sounds great too. So there's a couple of questions in the Q&A feature. So I'm just going to ask you one more question because of timing. So any tips on engaging people through digital marketing beyond content? For example, appropriate hashtags, images, and tagging on social media.
Yeah, so, you know, a slightly technical question. Hashtags, don't rely on it. You know, it's a great way for people to search for content. It's not necessarily a way to, you know, everyone dreams about seeing a hashtag going, putting their one in there and it riding that tsunami of wave. You know, you've got this weird kind of diagram, which is hashtag popularity and potential for it to actually give you some traction. And it is quite a steep curve, because by the time a hashtag is gaining so much traction, it's on your radar to utilize, you're going to be a sardine in a giant shoal. So what I recommend instead, and this is what we do on Africa Legal, is actually create some of your own hashtags, so that the community that you already know is coming to you can help it to organize and arrange their consumption of your content, rather than it just being a way to cheat and skyrocket your content out there. There's no easy path on successful content marketing. So do bear that in mind. And was there a second part, Moji, or was that just a good example of
yeah, it was just a good example. It was just an example of the question.
I'll take that. I'll stop talking.
Thank you so much, Tom.
Right, no problem. And just so everyone has that, any questions? I haven't been able to answer many today. I am going to stick around for the rest of the event, so maybe, but reach out to me. I'm going to practice what I preach. You know, that's my email address and that's a WhatsApp number. So I'll make sure these slides are available for others as well. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Africa Legal. We're here to help. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much. So our second speaker this evening is Sam Onigbanjo. Sam is the CEO of Great Business Platforms, a digital marketing agency. His clients are mainly from the real estate industry. He also has clients in wealth management, law, and the food sectors. Sam helps his entrepreneurial and SME clients apply automations to their business, thereby shifting their business models from traditional and manual through digital transformation to cost-efficient, fast and reliable digital business system. This evening, Sam will talk about how to grow, manage and position your service using 100% digital tools and automations. So let's welcome Sam.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I am so delighted to be here. One, because my father was a lawyer. Two, because my brother is a lawyer. And three, because I was meant to be a lawyer, but I just rebelled. I thought, so everyone's doing law, so I'm going to do something else, you know? But it's in my heart, so I'm never far away from you guys. So you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to engage you in the most practical way possible. So what I want you to do is keep your minds open. Just keep it open to things that are not conventional, that are not the usual things that are expected of your profession, right? So when we engage in positioning for in digital marketing, or when we deal with digital transformations, or what we call disruptions, it all starts with what we call a signature message. So it's really good to say, well, we have a digital platform, and how can we use it? But it's almost like a train or a car. If it's empty, the value will be zero. So what I'm really saying is that before you can effectively use a digital platform, you have to have a signature message, something, you have to have a wow factor. There's something about you and what you're bringing to the table that is disruptive. If you haven't got a disruptive message, then it's not good enough for you just to have a digital platform or some good ideas. So there's something about you, about your slant, your style, your expertise. There's something. And what I'm going to do very quickly, I've actually played about with one of my presentations. There's one that I deliver in 5 minutes, and I've switched a few things in there. But the reason why I've used it is that everywhere I've gone in this country and I've delivered on this, I always disrupt the room. And to be as politically correct as possible, I'm always that one black guy in the room. And by the time I deliver it, I get that conversion. And that's what matters. So it tells me that people don't necessarily want to engage with me, they need to. That's a disruption. So when you're in that position of being needed, there's a significant change. So you're not mundane, you're not the same as everyone else. There's something that stands out that makes you irresistible. And that's the mindset that I need you to open to. So don't say, well, I have my 2-1, I've got my first class, I went to Cambridge, I went to University of Lagos, or wherever it is. It's above that. It's a creative juice being released in you. So I want you to dare to be audacious. Have the audacity to believe that with the turning of digital, we're in the 4th industrial revolution. So things are not the same. No more black and white TVs. Things have changed. So what you've learned and applied in the past does not necessarily work now, because even some of the leaders ahead of you are not sure of what's going to happen. So people are looking for leadership, and it can come from anywhere, including you being a law student or you being a junior lawyer. Believe you me, when people give you an audience and they listen to you, their expectation and their hope is that there's something that you're going to say that's going to revolutionize their experience. That's the wow factor. So watch me play this presentation and imagine that this was actually you doing your thing. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. So there we go. First and foremost, this is how I dare to actually deliver. When people ask me for written documents, I rarely give them written documents. I put things in a digital format. I place my face there and say, there I am, say my name, and I give you 3 distinct things. So here I've played about with it. So I'm a junior lawyer, or I'm a law student, I'm a digital champion, I'm a passionate tech student. Straight away, people are like, this is not a traditional CV. And what's this on the side? Facebook brand, Instagram brand, LinkedIn brand, and Google. These are the platforms. These are the things that people communicate on, buy on, sell on, and move the entire globe. So there is no employer, there is no boss, there is no HR panel that does not recognize these 4 platforms. Now, if you are saying there's an association between you and these platforms, already you've started to catch their interest. So that's number 1. 2, I would then say, well, I know the 10 biggest law and digital questions. And people are going to think, really? Who are you? Pen goes down and I have attention. I say, who does this guy think he is? I want to hear this. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I have mine in marketing. What are yours in law? So I want your creative juices. If you had the opportunity to list 10 big things between law and digital, what would they be? Take out, open up that mind and think. This is how you're going to make yourself different from everybody else. Because believe you me, everyone else has read the book just like you. What is your differentiator? Think of 10 things that you know that can align law and digital. Then, next slide. I'm audacious again. I'll tell you straight. I'm delighted to work with you and also to be a digital transformation champion. So I'm assuming that I'm dealing with a law student that's looking for a new job or a placement, or a junior lawyer that is hoping to move from one organization to another. So I'm placing emphasis not just on my law, but the fact that I'm a digital transformation champion. In particular, how to attract and engage new prospects to us here as a digital law firm. So people are thinking, oh, is that how you see us? Is that what we are? We're in a digital age. No one can deny the age we're in. What people don't know what to do or how to do is how to transform. That's the question. How do we transform from our normal brick and mortar to start to adapt more and more digital things? Because it's a no-brainer. The courts are closed. How are you going to do law? You want to stand and wait? No, there has to be a new innovative approach. So when you start telling people about your vision for their business, they value your input. And at the bottom, so I'll put to practice and share everything I've learned in this fast moving space. So it's like, oh, so you know more about digital and you want to apply it. So I've got curiosity here. People are like, is that a bluffing or you can do it? So the question is, do we investigate and engage this guy, or do we just think, well, he can't do it? And people with open minds tend to want to know more. So what I'm really saying to you here is that for every area you go to, it's your responsibility to think about what is the alignment between digital and law, between what you've read and what you know and what you see out there. How can it be aligned? Because most senior lawyers are petrified of digital. I hope you know that. The ones I know anyway, they're petrified. I know loads. They're just like, oh, all this new stuff, they don't get it. But that is where you can come in. And at the bottom of the page, look what I put there. Look out for a copy of my ebook, A Young Lawyer's View of Law During and Beyond the Pandemic. Wow. I'm going for the disruption, guys. And when I say ebook, I hope you know an ebook can be 10 to 30 pages that you type up and you align some things, including your 10 big questions with images. You put it together and you have it as an e-format because that's a digital format. So you're not, so people say to you, are you ever going to print this book? You say, no, I'm a digital champion. I never want to print. I'm going to keep it all digital. And they subliminally recognize that, hold on, this guy is actually practicing what he's preaching. He's doing what he's saying. He's not giving us paper formats and aligning. He's saying to us, I'm prepared for the future and I'm willing and able to lead this organization into the future in all things digital so that we can have a cutting edge and we can engage as a global practice. Does anyone want to hire me? That's the question. Do you want to throw that guy out or do you want to keep him? That's what people need to think about. We need to disrupt things. Okay, so here, I've put another page together. And these are funnels. So these are the kind of funnels that I actually use every day in our business. But I've just tweaked it once again and I've labeled it Junior Lawyer Students Funnel. And here is the thinking. So let me just go to my pen and show you exactly what is really important here. So for everyone that writes commentary and articles, which I know you do, where you have your biases or you have your thoughts, every time you're able to add a digital slant to it. This is how you can actually position, because that's one of the key things I promised to speak about. This is how you can position yourself. You've written your article or you've done a video. So as we are right now, you can share it on an online meeting. Or if you wanted to, it could go through a text message with a link. It could be a short video on Instagram. It could be where most people feel comfortable in law, which is LinkedIn. Or it could be on the phone, face-to-face meeting, Facebook, or a YouTube video. And what I'm really saying here, I'm not saying market, because I know lawyers don't market, but you can actually comment. You can comment on activity. You can comment on what it means, what the pandemic means for the fashion and beauty and entertainment industry in this particular area. 3 things to look out for. You're not giving them free legal advice, but what you're doing is that you're showcasing that you can use digital platforms to actually position yourself not only to prospective employers, but also to industries that your employers specialize in. So if I turn around and I say, well, the legal practice we're working for are specialists in, I don't know, looking after multi-million-pound fashion and beauty and entertainment industries, why can I not write articles that attract CEOs in that industry already? So when it's time for my interview and people are looking back and reviewing what I've done, they can see that for the last 6 months, 8 months, 1 year, I have put out 10, 20, 30 videos, audios, or written thoughts, not marketing, but thoughts and comments. So already I am placing myself as a go-to person. Already I am demonstrating that the same way I, as a thought leader, can actually apply my thoughts to these platforms is the same way that if I'm engaged in your prestigious law firm, I can transfer my skills and my following. Because if I've done this successfully, there's a likelihood that there's some directors or some C-level people that have actually engaged with my work. And if I move or I get a job in a legal firm, I have pretty much got half of a client because of my own personal influence. So the mind that wants to use digital is a mind that has to realize that, well, we are not just going to rely on being fab lawyers. We're going to actually embrace digital. We're going to do short 59-second videos on just thoughts that relate to something in law, something in society, or in a specific area or discipline or industry, and something that deals with digital. And being the digital part really means hammering it out on your Instas, your Facebooks, your YouTubes, your WhatsApps, and just or Zoom articles, and you just keep it going and going and going till people recognize that not only are you talking and using digital, but you are actually truly a digital advocate and champion. That is one of the best ways that I believe that you can actually disrupt any market out there. And it's a way that, like I said, when I go into rooms and I do presentations, I've just tweaked this slightly, but every time I do it, there is an immediate conversion. So if it works for me at this age, it would definitely work for you guys because you're so much younger. It would definitely. All you need to do is believe, have that faith in yourselves, believe that you deserve these things, and don't doubt yourself, because I remember how it is to be a student, and sometimes part of these things are being unsure of yourself or of your self-value. But I want you to know that if you've made it this far as a law student or as a junior lawyer, and you're listening and watching me today, and you are willing to open your minds and to adapt these technologies, I tell you now, you deserve the promotions you're looking for, and have that mindset. So it's not entitlement, but it's one of confidence, super confidence that says you belong here, you are a value add, you've invested your life in law, and you are engaging in everything digital. And while you're at it, it's a good idea to look at blockchain as well. But look, we've got a brevity of time, cannot speak forever. So I'm just going to round up, I think, one more slide and that's it. So that's it. Once again, I'm putting myself out there. That's positioning myself, deliberately using one of these logos, my Instagram details, Facebook details, LinkedIn details, email, and that's a WhatsApp there. So guys, I would recommend that you have digital cards. These are digital cards. When people ask me, they say, can we have your bio? I send things like this to them. I send things like this and people think, oh, and say, yes, I'm digital. And they think, oh, got you. Because they're expecting a Word document with words that says, I can, and da, da, da. I'm like, no, if we're going to play digital, we're going to play it all the way. So either I'm going to send you a video or one of these. So if you went to any of my websites right now, the one there, you would see on the front page a video. If you went to the About Us page, you would see a video. You see some words, but you see a video, you see digital traps, you see retargeting, pixels, everything that I sell, I do. So when people walk there, they think, oh my God, this is a digital booby trap. This guy really is the man. So I want you to practice what you preach. I don't want you to be afraid. I want you to take the future with both hands. And I can assure you that a time will come that you're going to be this age, which I wish I could swap with you guys back now. But if anyone was going to tell me anything while I was graduating, or my first 3 years after graduation, I went to University of Lagos, by the way, greatest university in the world, Greater Cockeyes, if you're there, give us a Y, because we're the best. If anyone could tell me, it would have been pumping me with consistent self-confidence. I promise you guys, employers do not know all the answers. One of the reasons why they're willing to exchange money for you is because they hope you can bring a solution. So law in itself and your first class or your 2-1 or your 2-2 is fantastic. But because we're in the 4th industrial revolution, there are not that many people that are ahead of the game. Where we're going is blockchain. We're going there, we're not leaving it. That's where we have integrity of data, integrity of documents. If you want anything, so any type of document, if you want it to remain integral, put it on the blockchain, it cannot be broken. And that's why people harp on about, what's it called? Bitcoins and all these, Bitcoins and all these things. That's what it's about because of where it's coming from. So digital is a step before that. So guys, I want you to know that digital is the way forward for every single industry. And I want you to remember that even though you're members of the prestigious legal profession, you will make money by serving clients that are multi-billion-dollar or pound companies or naira companies in tech, in engineering, in food, in real estate. These people do not necessarily speak law, but they speak and they're embracing what's going on with digital. If you put this under your wraps, you will become coveted. Remember what I said? When I step in the room, I'm the odd guy out, but when I finish speaking and I evidence what I can do, I am purchased, not because they want me, but because they need me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sam. That was very eye-opening and very encouraging as well, because me, myself, as a law graduate, I tend to just, you know, run from these things rather than adapt to them. So I've learned a lot from what you said. So just a couple of questions. So the first question is, does going 100% digital not sort of limit opportunities? How can we break that and reach people that do not want to hear anything about digital space?
Good, good, good. Right. So let's do this, right? The future, the now and the future is digital. It is. We're not going to go back to a time of fax machines and black and white TVs. I hope everyone there agrees. So even if you have people that are resisting change, which is normal, Your job is not to get dissuaded by them. You know, it's like saying, the guy says, I'm going to marry this woman. And people say, oh, my dead body, you won't. If he's going to marry her, he's going to marry her. They have kids and that's it. So get over it. So people will always resist change. It's normal. That's why you have riots like you're having now. You see? So unless you don't believe that digital is the way forward, then you don't have to comply with this. But if you know that it's all about digital, if you want to become first amongst equals, you need to position yourself in the right place. If you delay, if you have two minds and say, let's be triple sure, and other people go ahead before you, the opportunities that you would have been taken by someone else, and you'll be like, had I known, oh God, I was gonna do that, you know. No, it's not about, it's a cruel world. It's a very competitive world. You have to go with your gut intuition. If you realize we're in a digital world, ignore the naysayers and go digital. So anyone else, I would disregard. That's my answer.
Okay. The second question is, as a student or paralegal, I feel when engaging with lawyers, I'm asking for more than I can give. How do I ask for help what differentiates from other people asking for help? I'm guessing this question is in relation to how to use your digital skills or bring them to life and, you know, when asking for help. Yeah.
Do you know what? That question sounds like it's coming from an emotion. It sounds like it comes from an emotion from a younger person. And I don't really think that question is about digital. I think it's about self-confidence, you know? And I'm going to say this to you again. I was your age. Believe you me, I was your age. I wasn't always this old. I was young and vibrant and happy and lots of hair on my head. I was. So this is me being empathetic towards you. You have to be your greatest cheerleader. You need to learn to tell yourself you deserve it. You see, apart from having a digital marketing agency, I'm also a Forex trader. I trade Forex. And there was a time that I used to trade and I used to see money coming and I used to think, do I look at this money? It's so much. I had to rewire my thinking. I said, no, I deserve this and more. And why I said that is that as long as I felt that this is a lot of money, I would not trade that much. But the moment I started to think big and I felt that I deserve this, that if anyone is God's image, is me, then I have to have the best, then that confidence brought out another level from me. So these questions about, I want you to know that anyone that you're speaking to, there's a value on you as well. Don't think that because someone has 10 years experience and you only have 6 months, you're not as good as them. It only means that they're ahead of you in that, but you have your own value. And I want you to speak to people eye to eye, knowing that you're the junior for now, but you're the leader of the future. So please believe in yourself. That's it. Take confidence. Be super confident. And look, and if you want, if you send me an email or something, or a LinkedIn or something like that, I can send you one of my series on self-confidence so that you can just chew on it and, you know, just feel a bit more confident. I believe that's the real answer. Thank you.
Thank you. So the final question for you, Sam, is how can we go about gaining experience within the tech world in order to gain exposure? Finding someone or a company that's willing to teach.
Good. You know what? I am an entrepreneur, and that means that I learned long ago not to expect people to do things for me. Say, I need to go to school, read, listen to a professor, pass the exam, go to work, get a salary. My brain isn't wired that way. The way it's wired is I create things, I create my opportunities. So what I'm really saying to you is that I don't want you to wait on someone to give you an opportunity because they may let you down. They may disappoint you and you think, well, I waited, I wrote 100 letters, I did this, nobody replied me. What I want you to recognize is the likes of Bill Gates, the likes of Steve Jobs, the likes of even Aliko Dangote that didn't wait on anyone. You see, they didn't wait. They didn't say, or God promote me. Nobody said, they said, I'm going to take my future. So what I'm really saying to you is that as long as you have access to the internet, you can go onto YouTube and you can start playing around with things. And I can tell you that you can ask people things. You can say, look, you know what, you have a course here, it costs this amount. Do you know what, I just can't afford it, but I really want it. Is there any way you can give me for free? They're going to say yes or no to you, that's all. And most of the time, when people think you're that audacious, as in, you really said that to me, yes, I really want it, I can't afford it, I'm a student. I can just turn around and give it. So look, you're that audacious, take it. So have self-confidence. All three questions I've heard today, they all stem from confidence, right? There's a confidence thing I'm picking up here. There's a self-confidence thing. I want you to know you are valuable. And because you're valuable, you can ask people questions and things, and they may say no, you ask the next person and the next person. And please remember that most successful people went through 100, 500, 1,000, 10,000 no's before they got a yes. So don't really base what you can achieve on waiting for somebody else. I want you to be audacious enough to take the future, bearing in mind that someday in the future, you can start your own chambers as well. So have that mind, or partner with someone that has that mind. And I hope that that will help to propel you to a higher and faster place.
Thank you so much, Sam. That was very powerful. Thank you.
Pleasure.
So our final speaker this evening is Ololade Saromi. Ololade is the joint head of the BNLF Junior Lawyers Division and a non-executive member of the BNLF's governing committee. He is also a barrister and practices commercial and property law at Five Paper in London. He joined Five Paper in October 2018 after successfully completing his pupillage at the same chambers. Ololade is a recipient of a number of scholarships. A few include the Birmingham Scholarship for his undergraduate studies at the University of Birmingham, the HHJ Paul Clark Scholarship from the Honorable Society of the Middle Temple to complete his bar studies, and most recently in 2020, International Outgoing Pegasus Scholarship from the Pegasus Scholarship Trust, which will fund his secondment to a leading international legal organization. This evening, Ololade recently conducted a full civil trial virtually. Will discuss the practical skills required, the technology that was used, the pre-trial steps taken to ensure the trial ran smoothly, and tips junior lawyers can take away. Hi, Ololade.
Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me well. I'm going to get right into it because I'm conscious of time. Over the last 10 weeks or so, I have attended the majority of my hearings remotely. Before discussing the technology used, however, I would just say a few words, general words, on the advent of remote hearings since the pandemic gripped the UK. When responding to the policy of social distancing and later the lockdown, which was imposed on the 23rd of March in the UK, the High Court itself showed itself to be much more agile than the county court. For example, I'm aware that just before the lockdown was imposed, Mr. Justice Nuji, a judge of the Chancery Division of the High Court, on Friday, the 20th of March, heard the interim applications list on that day remotely using either Skype for business or by telephone. So it was already operating virtually or remotely 3 days before the lockdown was even imposed. This was important because as a junior civil barrister, much of my work is in the county court and only some is in the High Court. I suspect that that is probably the case for most junior barristers who practice in civil areas of work, but of course there can be variations. The county court, however, took a different approach and it seemed to just adjourn most hearings off, thereby kicking them into the long grass. It is not an exaggeration to say, well, I think it's not an exaggeration to say that effectively this policy decimated the court practice of many junior barristers during the first 4 to 6 weeks of the lockdown. That was particularly frustrating because the Lord Chief Justice, in his first published message to judges of the civil and family courts, which was on the 19th of March, I think, had already said, and I quote, "The default position now in all jurisdictions must be that hearings should be conducted with more than one, or all participants attending remotely. For that reason, we all need to recognize that we'll be using technology to conduct business, which even a month ago would have been unthinkable. Final hearings and hearings with contested evidence very shortly will inevitably be conducted by using technology. Otherwise, there will be no hearings and access to justice will become a mirage. The county court eventually got its act together and got on top of the technology, and the hearings started to return slowly. Most have been by telephone, but there is nothing new about telephone hearings. I've had telephone hearings even prior to the lockdown. The rest have been by virtual means. I'm going to use a case study of a trial I did on the 4th of May, so exactly a month ago today. It was a trial before a circuit judge using Skype for Business. I propose to use that as my case study for the rest of this segment. 10 days prior to the trial, there was an application hearing within the case, and the judge used that opportunity to give directions for preparation for the trial. Some of the directions given included each party's legal representatives shall ensure that each witness has the technological capability to attend the trial remotely. Secondly, that each witness understands how to operate the technology to attend the trial remotely, and that each witness understands how to navigate the electronic bundle. Again, it was directed that each witness was to affirm. So instead of, because obviously there's no way we can, the court can be satisfied that a witness has probably sworn an oath on a holy book remotely. Also, any person attending the trial should have their microphone on mute unless directly addressing the judge or a witness or answering a question under cross-examination. And should a party wish to raise an objection during the trial, they are to raise their hand. I understand that Zoom has that has a button for that, but Skype for Business did not. Most importantly, however, one of the directions was for a dummy run of the trial. And that happened 3 days before the trial. So the trial was on a Monday, and on Friday afternoon around 3 p.m. we had a dummy run. So some of the technology that I'm going to talk about includes Skype for Business that we use, WhatsApp, e-bundles, and some of the applications that one can use for that. And we're going to talk about some more practical things like the need for multiple screens and your camera, for example, for joining calls such as this one, if you were to be visible. For Skype for Business, in my experience, this particular application is the principal one being used by the High Court and the County Courts to conduct virtual hearings. Some of you may already be familiar with it because your organizations are already using them, and because it integrates well with Outlook, the Microsoft email manager application. With that being said, however, for hearings, the court invariably organizes or sets up the virtual meeting. So I have not had the experience of using Skype for Business as an organizer of a meeting. It is probably important to note that Skype for Business, at least for me, did not work with the standard Skype application that most Windows users probably already have installed on their laptop. So unless you have access to Skype for Business specifically, you need to join the hearing by using the Skype for Business web application. The web application would need to be installed, so it's important to ensure that you've done so and tested it prior to the hearing. Otherwise, it could cause you to be late to your hearing. I learned that lesson the hard way, unfortunately, because I had thought the meeting link would work with my Skype application, and so ended up having to install the web application a few minutes before the dummy run hearing. That made me a couple of minutes late for it. Upon joining, I could not hear anyone. It transpired that my opposing counsel had the same problem. It turned out that the default speaker settings on the web application, for some reason, does not identify your PC's speaker. I'm not sure what precisely the issue is or why it's like that, but it didn't in my case, and it didn't for my opposing counsel. So be aware of this. And once you've changed it the first time you use the web application, I don't think the problem continues. It certainly didn't continue during the trial. But anyway, those issues that I've identified were precisely the reason why the judge thought it appropriate to order a dummy run, so that we can iron out those issues and so that the trial could run smoothly on the following Monday. One of the directions given by the court was that the parties need to figure out a way to communicate with each other during the trial. And she suggested, the judge suggested an email or using emails or text messages. But of course, parties can of course use the chat function within Skype itself, or they could use WhatsApp. We decided to use WhatsApp. At a physical hearing, as most of you know, especially a trial, my instructing solicitor or a client would be present and sitting behind me. I would be able to take additional instructions by simply turning my back momentarily. That, of course, wasn't possible. So we decided to use WhatsApp, and my solicitor created a WhatsApp group. We chose WhatsApp over, for example, emails, because emails can easily become confusing. For example, there is sometimes a delay between the email being sent and received. Also, where the email has been sent to more than one person, a flurry of multiple responses could create a very confusing trail of emails to look at when you're trying to take instructions very quickly. So to avoid that, we decided to opt for WhatsApp. Using WhatsApp, we created a group with myself, my instructing solicitor, and my client and my client's father, who was his main witness. The group was created prior to the dummy run. So in essence, we got to test out its functionality and its feasibility as a means of communicating during the trial. Excuse me. But of course, depending on the size and structure of your legal team, there are various ways to set up the communication lines using WhatsApp. For example, you could have two groups, one for counsel and the instructing solicitor, and another with counsel and the solicitor and the witnesses. And in my view, WhatsApp worked very well, but I probably should highlight some of the issues relating to its use. Firstly, when preparing for the hearing, I went through, well, not for the hearing, when preparing for this talk, I went through my WhatsApp and looked at the display pictures of 20 of my lawyers, contacts / friends, that I had most recently engaged with on WhatsApp. And I would say about 11 of them, not 11, 12 of them had on display pictures that I suspect they probably wouldn't be happy to use in a professional setting. So you have to think about your display picture, and well, that's if you decide to use one at all. Secondly, maintaining professional standards and ethical standards. In my case, there was a point during my client's oral evidence when his father became so impassioned about what was being said that he wrote something in the group that had the potential of influencing the witness's evidence. Now, my witness was using a laptop. That's where he was accessing, Skype for Business through that. And he had his phone in his hand and he was using that to access the document. The issue with this is that there was a chance that he could receive a WhatsApp notification on his phone and he could have seen what potentially his father said whilst he was being cross-examined. I'm confident that he did not, however, and if he did, that his evidence was not influenced in any way by what his father said, because his oral evidence did not align with what had been said by his father. However, I had to immediately tell the father that that's not appropriate and he should refrain from doing that, which he then did. But again, that's one of the issues that one has to think about when you're using WhatsApp, especially when, for example, even if one isn't using a phone. I had the WhatsApp client installed on my laptop. So if I'm accessing the documents on my laptop, I get a notification of a new message on my laptop, and that could easily be used to influence a witness's evidence. So things like that need to be thought about prior to the hearing. And lastly, distractions. Of course, WhatsApp notifications come through if you have somebody who's trying to get in touch with you. If that's the case, then you need to find a way to manage those distractions. I suppose the only real way to do so is just to avoid using, I would suggest using a completely different device. So for example, having a work phone or having a personal line. I use my personal line because it's the easiest way for me to go about my business. But after that hearing, I think it might, and especially if trials and hearings continue to go like this using technology and remote methods into the future, I might consider investing in another phone so I can have a phone that has a WhatsApp client that's strictly for the purposes of hearings, etc. So I can manage the distractions in that way. WhatsApp was particularly good because you can download the entire history of conversations and then keep them with your file in relation to the case. Moving on from WhatsApp, I'm going to talk about e-bundles. So of course, unlike a physical hearing, I did not have a single sheet of paper in front of me. I instead had 3 e-bundles. I was acting for the defendants and did not have the responsibility of preparing the core bundle, but I had the responsibility of preparing my authorities bundle with my skeleton argument and the cases I wish to refer to. There are various applications you can use to prepare the e-bundles. I've heard of people using Adobe Acrobat PDF and an application called Nitro PDF. I use an application called Casedo, Casedo, to create mine. The application is in fact the innovation of a still practicing barrister, I understand. I do not propose to go into the niceties of creating e-bundles, but will say that there is an especially useful 13 to 14 minute long video on this subject on the website of St. Philip's Chambers. Once on the website, if you search for creating and using electronic hearing bundles, you will find the video. It's very useful, and the only way I became aware of it was because the judge, the trial judge, during that dummy run mentioned that we should use that video to prepare our e-bundles because it was very good, and I concur, it was very good. The e-bundle and going paperless point leads me to an important point about the need for multiple screens. There were 6 things I wanted up at once. So I wanted Skype for Business so I could see what was going on in the virtual courtroom. I needed WhatsApp up so I could easily message my solicitor or take further instructions. I needed my Word document up so I could take notes of the hearing. I needed my core bundle of documents up, and I needed my skeleton arguments and my authorities up. So for me, those are 6 documents I needed. Most people say 2 screens are normally enough, and I agree, because, for example, you don't need the skeleton arguments or the authorities until perhaps the end of the hearing. So 2 screens will allow you to have one application, one half of one screen, another half. So all you really need is 4 screens. But out of an abundance of caution, I decided to go for 3. So I bought a 3rd screen and thought I'll use it for the trial so I could have all 6 documents at once, so I could have complete convenience and avoid any room for inconvenience. Unfortunately, however, and as fate would have it, I didn't get to use the 3rd screen because I had some cabling issues. I knew that my laptop only had one HDMI port, and I thought I had bought the right cable in order to allow me to attach a 2nd screen to my laptop, but unfortunately the cable I bought was not the correct one, so I couldn't use the 3rd screen for the trial. But I've connected it since then, and it's been immensely useful for other things I've been involved in. What I needed was a USB to HDMI cable, which essentially turns a USB port on a laptop or on a PC effectively to an HDMI port. And I think that's immensely helpful for those who have relatively new laptops that don't tend to have more than one HDMI port. As I mentioned already, my client used his phone as his 2nd screen to access the bundle of documents. As a result, he sometimes struggled to find documents when he needed them and when he was being questioned. So I am a big advocate for having at least 2 computer screens to assist you. I suppose one of the different ways I used technology to participate in this hearing was the way I set up my video for the hearing and for this talk today. I relied on my webcam initially until I was told at a Chambers meeting by some members of my commercial team that the visuals they were receiving from me were not very good at all. And my internet speed was terrible, so it made something that was bad even worse. At that time, like I said, I was relying on my laptop's webcam, and I had to figure out how to solve the problem before the trial. I didn't want to spend money on buying a completely new camera, so I figured that there must be a way I could use my phone to solve this problem. And after searching on the internet for about 15 to 20 minutes, I discovered two applications, something called an IP webcam and something else called DroidCam, which is in fact what I'm using right now. Essentially, what it allows you to do is it shows you how to access the administrator settings of your Android phone and Android device, which then allows you to use your USB cable, your phone's USB cable, to connect to your laptop using this application. And so therefore you can get your video through your phone and have that transmitted through to Skype or Zoom or whatever other application you're using. I found that immensely useful because it meant that the standard of my video went from a couple of megapixels to the 8 megapixels on my phone's camera. So I'm very grateful for that. But it also meant that I didn't need to rely on the internet for the transmission of that video. And so it meant that no matter how bad my internet is, it still normally allows me to download documents, work on documents, browse. But having a video conference puts a lot of strain on the bandwidth. So it completely removed that strain. So I'm able to work using my phone and able to rely on my already very shoddy internet, which I will be replacing very, very, very soon. So just to make sure I've covered all points, well, that worked very well for me during the trial. And like I said, it's what I'm using now. And that, I think, is the most important other piece of technology I've had to get accustomed to using for my remote working. So that's it from me, Moji.
Thank you, Ololade. That was quite a different experience. I've never experienced that before, heard about that. So that's really different. So how was your experience of conducting a trial using Skype for Business compared to a physical hearing?
Overall, I enjoyed it more using Skype for Business. I could do it from the comfort of my home. I didn't have to wake up an hour or 2 hours earlier to travel to a distant court. It was technology that wasn't difficult to get accustomed to using, and once you've set it up, it's easy to continue to use it. But I suppose it did raise some issues when it came to, for example, cross-examining the other side's witness. I like to be able to see the people I'm cross-examining and look at their body language. But some people take the view that that's not that important, but everyone has their own preferences. You don't have that with a virtual hearing. Also, I suppose you have to be very careful when you are communicating, because due to interruptions in, for example, an internet connection, you might not be, what you say may not transmit as quickly as you think it's being transmitted, and therefore people are likely to speak over one another. And that's very important not to do when you're cross-examining a witness. It's important to be able to take their evidence, precisely what they've said, and make a note of it so that you can use it in your submissions. But overall, I would say I enjoyed the experience much more than doing a physical trial. Although I would say that if I did not have the opportunity to ever do a physical trial again, I think I would sorely miss it. So I don't think it should replace, virtual trials should replace physical trials, but I do think it should be more embedded in the system going forward.
That's interesting what you just said. Someone has just asked a question about that. Do you think in the future the courts will start to use apps that monitor what a witness is seeing on their screen? So for context, Pearson View, who provide online tests, now use a Praetorian, I don't know how to pronounce that, Praetorian system that can monitor programs on a person's screen. So do you think that's something that might be implemented in future?
I think it's very important. And something that I didn't mention is that although I, for example, restrained my client's father from saying anything further that might influence the witness's evidence, in reality, there was nothing stopping him from just WhatsApping his son directly. And his son would have seen it and I wouldn't have known, my solicitors wouldn't have known. I suppose the only thing that would have restrained or kept in line the witness is the oath or the affirmation he gave at the very beginning of his evidence, to say that he swears to, promises to tell the truth. But other than that, there's not very much that, for example, I could do or my solicitor could do to manage that. And I think introducing technology like that will be very important. For example, one of the directions given by the judge was that the witness must be in a room where there will be no one else is, so that no one could feed him what to say whilst he's giving his evidence. So no one could be standing behind the computer or behind the camera and telling him what to say, or holding up signs to say this or say that in response to this, to what he's been asked. So I think something like that would be necessary. Some form of technology to manage that would be necessary going forward.
Yeah. Once the trial is over, how do you regain your freedom from WhatsApp?
Oh, my freedom. Well, yeah, the reason why, yeah, I actually think that's important. I think that's important because, for example, for weeks after the trial, I had on a photo of me all suited and booted. And that's not the kind of photo I normally use on WhatsApp, because it's, for me, a personal application and something I use to communicate with my friends. So I felt restricted in what I can do, because now I know that my client, in that case, has my number through the WhatsApp group. My solicitor has my number, my personal number, and they could see, if they search me up on WhatsApp, they can see my display picture. So I've kept in mind that I have to at least continue to use pictures that are acceptable. Not that I would use pictures that weren't acceptable in any event. But I suppose that goes out to warning for young people, because I know we can all be a bit zealous about our display pictures and don't always think thoroughly through the display pictures we use. So if you're now going to be living in a world where WhatsApp and such things can get you in a bit of trouble, I think you need to think about it. You need to think about that twice. How have I regained the freedom of my WhatsApp? I really haven't, but it's not an issue for me, because I don't use pictures that I wouldn't show anybody else in any event. But I suppose the only real way to solve that problem is to use a completely different number and sign up for WhatsApp on that number on a completely different phone, and say you have that phone for work purposes and for trial or hearing purposes, or for conferences and meetings, etc. So I think that's the only real foolproof way to deal with that, unless you start deleting and blocking your clients and your solicitors immediately after the trial, which I think is a bit too aggressive.
Oh, that's good. All right, thank you so much, Ololade. Thank you. So I don't think we have any new questions. People are just asking for the recording to be sent. So the recording will be on the BNLF's website, should you wish to rewatch this. So all those asking, because that's most of the questions I'm getting. But yes, we have now come to the end of the webinar. So I would like to say a big thank you to all the speakers. I would also like to tell you about the next webinar that will take place on the 24th of June. It's the International Justice in Africa, and the aim of this webinar is for attendees to gain insights from experts about some of the various developments in international justice relating to the African continent, such as in international criminal justice and investor-state dispute settlement. So please sign up for this should you be interested through the Eventbrite link that will be on the BNLF's website. Thank you so much again to the panelists. That was great. Thank you.
Thank you, Moji.
Thank you, Moji.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending. Bye-bye.